Today we're welcoming Crystal Bennett. She's a military spouse, a trauma expert, an advocate. And what else do you do, Crystal? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, give us a little background.
Yeah. So I am a military spouse. My husband's United States Navy, so been married for 15 years.
Hey.
And I am the founder and CEO of an LLC called THYRIVE. And the work that I do through THYRIVE is really working to create trauma-informed and trauma-responsive systems, working with individuals, providing coaching, consultation, and utilizing my personal trauma history in order to advocate for improved systems, particularly around human trafficking, racial trauma, suicide prevention, and really anything that's trauma related.
So can I ask you why trauma? Like, to kind of, if you don't mind going into your personal story, but what led you to that? Why is that, where you seem to want to fulfill your purpose?
I say, I didn't find trauma. Trauma found me. It started at a really early age, growing up in a household. I'm the oldest out of 5 children. And, we really grew up in experiencing quite a bit of poverty, quite a bit of dysfunction in our family. And from the age of 11 till the time I was 15, I experienced family trafficking. So essentially, I am a victim of human trafficking, but I am a self-proclaimed thriver. I've been a victim. I've moved to surviving, and really just each and every day is a daily battle to make sure that I'm thriving and enjoying life to the fullest. So I guess just not allowing my experience and my history to have been in vain, and having just this natural, innate ability to understand the work and empathize with the experiences of individuals, and work to advocate and activate the voices of others so that everybody knows that they're not alone, and that we each have a journey, we each have a story, and that we deserve to have our story heard, and we deserve to have our stories validated.
Now, what did it take for you to get to that point, from going from being a victim to advocating for victims, and changing your mindset? Because I'm pretty sure that wasn't an easy process, right, of going through all of that and then being able to be such a positive person after dealing with all those things.
Yeah, it was a journey, to say the least. I battled with thoughts of suicide attempts, and just pushing everybody away in my life. And that's what the trauma response is, and the survival response is kind of putting up that wall and pushing everybody away, and not having that ability to trust. And so for a long time, it took me learning about myself so that I was able to start having those relationships with others. But until I could truly understand and accept who I was and start to heal that inner child that had been, just screaming out, wanting to feel loved, wanting to feel heard, wanting to feel validated, I really wasn't at a place that I could let anybody else in to try to love me as an adult, or love that child. So I would say that probably what a major turning point in my life was that I started struggling with quite a bit of physical ailments, and trauma manifests itself in the body and can come out in various ways. But I was hospitalized for 5 days because of blood vessels that were swollen in the base of my skull. And there was no explanation besides the fact that I was holding on to stress in my body. And so I tried physical therapy, I tried medications, and for years just was trying all of these different ways to try to heal. And at one point, I finally found a physical therapist that said, every time I touch you, it's almost like the pain resurfaces, and rather than you healing, your body is preventing you from allowing me to touch and manipulate and try to help you heal. She said, has something happened to you? And it was almost like her acknowledging that opened my eyes to the pain that I was causing and creating for myself by holding this all in. And so at that point, I have four wonderful children, and I said, if I'm going to be around for my kids, and if I'm going to be able to just be in the moment with my kids, then I need to have that self-awareness, and I need to take better care of myself and engage in practices that bring me joy, and learn how to practice not only self-care, but that self-restoration and self-preservation.
Wow. So with your business Thrive, how long has that been going on?
So as a military spouse, y'all know we travel around. Probably about 7 years ago, I had initially begun it, and we were stationed in Florida at the time. And at the time, I was doing quite a bit of consultation in schools in Jacksonville, Florida, as well as traveling up to the Detroit, Michigan area to help to embed trauma responsiveness into the school systems for kids who were academically behind, experiencing some behavioral problems, and had some touch points with the law or the juvenile justice system. And it really, for me, it was validating to know that I could utilize my experiences to help such large populations of individuals. And then we picked up and we moved to California, and I, got busy with my husband being deployed and kind of put it to the back burner. And we're currently stationed in Kansas. And certainly we're not immune to the issues that are occurring around racial tension and racial trauma. So about 3 years ago, I was asked, I was told, because I was the only Black individual and a team that I worked for with an organization, that someone had requested a person of color to do a presentation on racial trauma. And since I was the only Black person in the organization, that was me. And I guess in that experience and seeing how much this organization was paying to the organization that I was working for, it opened my eyes to the fact that if I'm going to do the emotional labor, then I'm going to put that money in my own pocket. And so that really prompted me to say, let me get this business back up and going. And I did. And it's really just taken off. And it's been an amazing blessing to be able to offer workshops and coaching and consultation really across the nation on so many things that are related to trauma, and especially kind of changing the workplaces for individuals that work in organizations so that organizations are more trauma informed.
So do you have a preferred focus when it comes to working with different types of, trauma victims? Because for you to talk about, like, obviously the racial trauma and the workplace and stuff like that versus working with kids, is there, do you kind of, I guess, does it resonate with you more with a particular group?
I would have to say, as of late, much of the work that I have focused on has been racial trauma. And part of that being because of me being a parent to 4 children, that I feel like I've come to the realization that when I'm long gone, I will be somebody's ancestor. And I want to be able to plant the seeds now that maybe I won't see the fruits of my labor, but that I know my generations that are going to come after me, and my children and my children's children and their children will be able to benefit from the work that I'm doing today in terms of creating more equitable and just systems.
Now, with your presentations and just being an advocate, does it trigger you? Are there any coping mechanisms that you have to prevent it triggering you and having to relive that childhood phase that you had to go through?
As much as I'd like to say that it doesn't, I think the reality is that I have to realize that it does impact me. And I have to be very cognizant that when I get done with workshops or I get done with presentations, or even as I'm prepping the materials, that I have to allow myself to stop and listen to my body, right? Our bodies speak to us. And when my shoulders are tense, or I'm having a headache, or I just feel really fatigued, that I have to recognize that those are the trauma responses that I hold, and I need to be able to take that step away and just sit and maybe, laugh with my kids for a couple moments, or turn on some music and just kind of be in the moment, beating out to some good music, or, go for a walk. And I've had to learn that, because I think as a Black woman trying to be successful, is that I've always learned, that you have to work, right? You'll rest when you're dead. But I don't want that to come sooner than it's supposed to. And I want to be able to care for my kids. And so I don't always do it perfectly, but I am learning. I have two really amazing members of my Thrive team that, I get done with a presentation and like we just spend 10 to 15 minutes just kind of breathing and laughing and just kind of joking through it. And that helps to just leave it all out where it's at. Like kind of one of my things that I do in presentations, especially Zoom, is that I'll do a presentation, and once everybody's left the Zoom room, is I just kind of let out this, and it's just kind of getting it out and just leaving it all out there. And then being able to go back to do whatever it is that I was doing and making dinner and focusing on my family, and just know that I've left it where it needs to be left. And again, I don't always do it perfect, but I realize that much of the work that I do is quite a bit of emotional labor, and it is very triggering because it's very personal for me. And I wouldn't be good at what I did if it wasn't personal. But because it's personal, it bears quite a brunt on me.
Yeah, I bet. Wow, that's a lot. Wow.
Now, the spelling, why the spelling for Thrive? I was just wondering, for it to be different, it got to be a reason behind it. So.
Right.
Yeah. I just want the story.
I don't know how to spell. Haters on Facebook that'll say, "Oh, she don't even know how to spell," right? So yes, you're absolutely. So when I first got started, I wanted something with meaning, and Thrive for me had meaning just in terms of, getting beyond surviving and thriving. But then I also wanted to have an acronym that really connected to the work that I was doing. And so Thrive stands for Together We Can Hone Resiliency in Youth from Vulnerable Environments.
Ooh.
Yeah, I must
say that one more time.
Together we can hone resiliency in youth from vulnerable environments.
Wow. I like that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Moment of silence.
yes. So I was just sitting here thinking, like, so I know you kind of discussed, so at this point, is Thrive, is this like your career? Is this the main focus, or is this like a side thing for you right now? Because I'm just wondering is it the main career, or is it a side thing for you right now?
So currently it's the side, and I'm waiting for my big break. So hopefully, right, the more I make appearances, and I've had really great opportunities, but for me, the big break or whatever the work has to be meaningful for me. So even as we think about like the work around racial trauma or creating equitable systems, as I get contacted very often to do workshops on, can you do a workshop on microaggressions? Can you do a workshop on stereotypes? And I'm very clear that I don't do one and dones. Right? Because this is my life, and this is about not being performative, and it's about being genuine and authentic and doing work for sustainable change. So yes, I would hope at some point that Thrive can be the end all be all for me, and that will be just it. But until that point comes, I'm still working working the 9 to 5. And so kind of in my day to day, I'm the director for a local public health department, and I oversee all of their human services and case management components.
So what is that like? Because we talk about obviously being military spouses, and obviously we carry a lot of hats, but so you're talking about working a full-time job, you have a decent sized family, and And now you also have, your organization that you're running. So what is that like? What you trying to focus on balancing, your time?
Balance is a foreign word. And I am, right now I think is the prime time for me to do all of these things because we're fortunate that where we're stationed, my husband isn't deploying, but we will be leaving here within the next year and he'll be going back to sea duty. So things might look very different. So right now he is in a position that he has quite a bit of flexibility and he's been able to wear many hats to really step in and do the work to help me get where I need to be. So I am very, very blessed and thankful for his support and everything that he's putting in as a husband, as a father, as someone who's in the military. But you're right. I mean, there are many days that I carry the guilt of knowing that when I work my 9 to 5 and I get home and then I sit in here and I'm developing and I'm doing presentations, that I don't always have the time that I'd like to have to commit to just that quality time for my husband, that quality time for my children, or that time even for myself. So I do try to be very intentional about, at least every 3 to 4 months, just planning a 3 to 4 day family getaway, rent an Airbnb, and just the hardest thing has been leaving my computer and saying the computer's going to stay home. I'm not going to bring it with me. But I'm learning. I am a work in progress, and that's okay. I always say that I am perfectly imperfect.
Right. And aren't we all?
And that's by design, and I'm okay with that. So yeah, it's a stressor each and every day, but I try to be much more intentional. And I'm an early riser. So on the weekends, I am up at, usually 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. And so then I could take 3 to 4 hours to just knock out work before the whole rest of the house is up. And so that's how I try to manage it all and be available for everyone.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know we talked about that, I think a few episodes ago when we were talking. Yes. Just talking about basically just following your dream and putting in that work and that effort, when you have the opportunity, because sometimes it's so easy to put, your desires, hopes and dreams to the side to focus on family or, work and everything like that. But, it's a blessing because you're out here changing lives and it's needed. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I know some of the sacrifices are hard at the time, but obviously I think there's a lot of people who will be appreciative of the work that you're doing. So it's not, for nothing,
right. And I'm sure your husband and kids, they see the hard work that you're putting in and the progress that's being made. So I know they understand and they support you. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, they'll ask sometimes. They'll say, "Mommy, why are you always working?" And, and I'll say, "You like the food you eat? You like right? Like that's, and I just try to teach them. I try to teach them the value of hard work. I try to teach them what it means to be able to get the things that you want to have, and how it is that we accomplish our hopes and dreams. And, my kids I have a 13-year-old son, a 12-year-old daughter, and then a 5-year-old son and a 1-year-old daughter. Yeah, crazy, don't.
Hey, listen, we started all over too, so I feel you on that one.
I wasn't thinking, but now older ones are getting older. I've just really thought about how to start bringing them into the business, right? And that nice. Allows for quality time, but also starts to teach them the value of entrepreneurship and starting to get out there and be able to do something that they're proud of and put some work and take that pride in what they can accomplish.
I was going to ask you how, had your past kind of affected your relationship with your kids and even your husband, because I know you said at one point it was hard for you to, accept somebody loving you in that kind of way. So how has that, affected your relationships?
Yes, especially the physical.
Yeah. My husband is, it's just, I don't know. God knew what he's doing when he placed them in my life. I honestly can say that because I've had my bout of unhealthy relationships, and not just relationships that were unhealthy because of someone else, but relationships that were unhealthy because of me. And my husband he may not always understand, but he tries to show his care. He tries to show his concern and just be present and kind of hold space for me when I'm not in a good space. A lot of my insecurities have led to conflict in our marriage. And I've had to realize, like, Crystal, what role are you playing in this? How is your trauma history showing up? And do a lot of self-reflection and self-evaluation. But what I appreciate is he loves me through my healing, but he doesn't allow me to utilize my trauma to justify my behavior. And that's really important, is that what I have found in the relationships with individuals that I'm closest with is that those are people who have loved me in my darkest moments, but have also called me on my stuff and kind of say, like, Crystal, you can't treat people like this, and do it in a way that is intentional and it's loving, so that, I'm not ready to throw fists or fight. And in terms of my kids, we all want to be the best parents that we can be, and we don't always get it right. I am extremely protective of my children, and I know that that's because that's what I wish that I would have had, that I didn't. And I never want my kids to grow up and not having someone, particularly their parents, having told them that they love them and feeling what love actually means. And, I didn't know what love meant growing up. I never heard anybody say that they loved me, and I don't ever want that for my children. So, I might be a little overbearing with my kids and over lovey-dovey. And, but I will say, and it's interesting that you asked this question, because I was just thinking about this afternoon and having a conversation with someone, is probably the greatest impact that my history of trauma has had in my parenting, is that I don't know how to play, if that makes sense. And because I didn't have an opportunity to play when I grew up. When I grew up as the oldest sibling, I cared for all my brothers and sisters. I was kind of the mini mom and the one that was responsible. And so very early on, I had to assume more of an adult-like role. And then when I started being victimized, there was no childhood. That was the definition of play, right? Like, I was somebody else's toy and somebody else's object to play with. So trying to live in an imaginary place and get on the floor and play pretend with my kids, it's something totally foreign to me that I wish that I knew how to do, and wish that I can be present in that moment. And I just haven't found the way to be able to.
Look, Crystal, listen, I'll tell myself
I thought it was just me. I thought it was just me, ma'am.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I don't know if this is going to make it worse, but I was actually going to ask you, if you had the opportunity to, if you as an adult, with everything you've learned, if you had the opportunity to go back and talk to yourself as a child, what do you think you would say? That's all right.
And this is usually the point that I get emotional, because I think about this. Like, I think about what I needed as a kid. And I think as an adult, if I could go back and talk to the younger me, like, I would let the younger me know that she can take off her cape, right? That she is loved, that she's valued, she's deserving, and that she doesn't have to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders, and can take off that cape, and that it's okay, right? It's okay to not feel like you have to be strong all the time, and that you have to have the answers all of the time, and just be able to just be, and be a kid, be loved, be able to love, and be free.
Okay. That is. I need a moment. Hold on. Okay. Wow. Going back with your kids and you saying, you don't know how to play, like with the two little ones now, or have you ever, throughout, just your healing process, have you done counseling? How is it now? Do you do the family counseling with the kids, or you just like how does that work, like with you for the little ones, or is it kind of like they're teaching you, each day?
My kids teach me every day. Counseling has not ever been something that I've been very successful at, and maybe it's kind of that notion is you can't counsel the counselor, right? And it's not true, but it is in my case. So because of my trauma, I have major control issues. I have extreme anxiety, but most people don't know because I'm a very high functioning person with anxiety. So like my anxiety comes through my accomplishments, through perfectionism, through my work ethic. And so individuals would just see me as someone who, has it all together and is very successful and very accomplished. But that's my anxiety, and that's my need to be in control, which has benefited me in some facets, but in others it hasn't, because it hasn't quite allowed me to let my guard down to the extent that I would like to. But I tried at one point to go to counseling very early on when I was around 16 and had attempted suicide. And what ended up happening is I ended up getting put in charge of a support group because I just needed to have the control. And so that's when I learned, like, I heal through my work with others, right? And so that's how I can heal is just being able to have conversations with other people who've either been through similar experiences or who can grow and learn from my experiences. And so that's been the healing journey for me. I tried as an adult to go to counseling, and the focus was on forgiveness. And I don't want to say that I don't believe in forgiveness, but I wasn't at that place, and I tried. I wrote the letter that I was asked to write. I sent the letter that I was asked to send, and then the response. I mean, nobody wrote me a letter back, but my sister told me what the response was based on her interactions with the receiver of the letter, and then it triggered me again. So I was like, well, no letters, no forgiveness, and. So I guess I'm just at a place where I'm healing on my own terms, and I'm all right with that. I really am. I don't. People may beg to differ, but I feel like I'm at a place where I have a really high level of self-awareness. I have a really amazing support system, and I have a career that just allows me to continue to share parts of myself so that I can start to heal on the terms that I'm comfortable with.
Okay. Is there any resources or any advice you can give to, like, let's say someone who's actually just working through, trying to heal themselves, that's been in the same situation as you?
Or just anything in general, if it's something that's on your heart that you just want to say to leave for our listeners.
You know, what I would say is kind of twofold. If you're someone who doesn't have this experience and maybe struggling as to how to respond, the advice that I would give is that you don't need to know somebody's trauma to know that many of us have a trauma history, and that we all deserve to have an extension of grace provided to us, right? There is no one way that someone looks who's experienced trauma. And so we just need to accept that many people walk amongst us that have these histories, and it doesn't take much just to act with curiosity versus act in a way where we're antagonistic or we're defensive or we're attacking to someone. And for individuals who've experienced trauma, know that you are not defined by your trauma. Our trauma can consume us, but our trauma does not define us. And that the process of healing is just that, is a process. It is a journey, and it is a journey that sometimes you'll feel like you've come to the end and that you've accomplished everything that you want to accomplish. And on other days, you'll feel like, did I even take the first couple steps? And it doesn't mean that anything's wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. Our journey is ours to define. It's ours to take. There's not just one right way. And although I speak and say that counseling may not have been it for me, counseling is it for many people. And whatever it takes to be able to process what your trauma is and to be able to get on that path to healing, find that journey, because we all deserve to not only survive, but to ultimately thrive.
Thank you for that. Thank you. So when we, sorry. No, you good.
Oh, go ahead. So that, if they want to reach out to you for any additional help or advice, they can seek.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is www.crystalthrives.com. And so that's Crystal Thrives, and it's Thrives with a Y. And then my email is crystal@crystalthrives.com. So I'm always open. My inbox is always open. My website talks a little bit more about me, my story, and just any services that I'm able to provide. And certainly don't hesitate to reach out, regardless of resources, regardless of budget. That's not what's important to me. What's important to me is being able to make those meaningful connections and really help individuals and communities to thrive.
Well, thank you so much, Crystal, for coming on today and just sharing your story. We really appreciate it. And we hope that, it's helping one of our listeners. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's going to. Somebody will hit and yeah, it's going to. To close it out, we always do our affirmation. So we're going to get into that. All right, I started off. If you want to join in, that's fine. I know sometimes people like to join in, so you can repeat after me if you and Mary if you want to. But I am enough.
I am enough.
I have the power to create the life I desire.
I have the power to create the life I desire.
I am worthy of my dreams.
I am worthy of my dreams.
I am worthy of my dreams.
Whoop, whoop.
Yes. So thanks again, Crystal. Continue to thrive. You got this.
Thank you.
And remember, shine, sis.
You got this, girl.